Good morning. My name is Gary Holder-Winfield. I'm the state representative from New Haven in 94th District. I was the proponent of House Bill 6578 in the House, and this morning, in the aftermath of last night's vote and 11-hour debate in the Senate on House Bill 6578, we're here to talk about members of families of people who have been, unfortunately, victims of heinous crimes in the state of Connecticut. What we would like to do this morning is allow them to speak and to give us another side of the issue. I think what we've done in the state of Connecticut is we focused on a single individual or individuals who are on a certain side of the issue, and it has made it such that when we talk about the family members of victims, what we talk about are family members on one side. And I think if we're going to continue to talk about the family members, we should have a little bit of context. So I'm not going to speak very long. I'm going to introduce Reverend Walter Everett and allow him to talk to you a little bit about his experience. Thank you.
Last night, during the historic debate on the death penalty, I heard one senator say, "I can't imagine what victims feel like." Well, we're here to tell you something of what victims feel like. As one who is a member of two murder victims groups, Murder Victims Families for Human Rights and Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation, sister organizations that encompass over 4,000 murder victims' family members. And all of us oppose the death penalty for a variety of reasons, but very specifically, we know that the death penalty never provides any closure for any family member. No matter what prosecutors tell us, it doesn't provide closure. People wait and wait for 15 or 20 years for an execution, and then after it occurs, they say, "Why don't I feel better?" We know it's never going to make a difference. It doesn't bring a loved one back. Secondly, we're convinced that we don't want to see more victims made of the death penalty itself. I feel for the families of a person who was executed. That family loves their son or daughter just as much as I love my son. And just because my son was killed, I don't want to see another parent go through the same experience. I lived through almost a year of intense rage after my son was killed in Bridgeport in 1987. And through that rage, I struggled to find out how I could get out of that rage, how I could regain my life. And finally, almost a year after Scott's death, I sat in the courtroom as the offender, Mike Carlucci, stood and said, "I'm sorry I killed Scott Everett. I wish I could bring him back. Obviously I can't. But I don't know what else to say. These must sound like empty words, but I'm sorry." And that began a process whereby I was able to ultimately, by God's grace, forgive him. I began to visit him in prison, and eventually I spoke on his behalf before the parole board. Today, Mike is out of prison. He's doing extremely well. He's a supervisor for a trucking firm. But even more than that, he goes around speaking about what God has done in his life. He speaks at churches, high schools, colleges. He also goes to prisons and speaks to people that he more or less lived with for so long. And he tells them of what God has done in his life. I'm convinced that Mike would not be the person he is today if I had not forgiven him. But even more important, personally, I would not be the person I am today if I had not been able to forgive. I was living with rage, and I knew that that was killing me. I knew something had to be done. So I'm convinced that without the death penalty, we will continue to move ahead and move toward a reconciliation, toward understanding among all people. That's what we're all about. I don't want to see another parent suffer, and I don't want to see another life taken in the name of family members of victims. Thank you very much.